Sawadee Krap and welcome to another episode here for the Funky Pod Mind for Media and Communication. And yeah, wow, you're not used to getting that many episodes right next/after each other, but well, special users, special cases scream for special attention. And I was so close to actually making this video like a few days ago. So this is about UFC 297, Sean Strickland and so on, right? And I was like, there will be so many videos about it. And I only listened to the highlights and the highlight videos. So maybe I'm exaggerating and I'm overreacting or whatnot. So I was like, okay, maybe I shouldn't do it. And now that I read more into it and I followed up on a few things, some more videos, I was like, okay, maybe I actually have something to say about it. And well, let's try. So first of all, this is not a breakdown video of the fight, right? So I'm not an MMA fighter or anything like this. What I am, though, is a professor for media and communication. And so I'm going to look into like the press conference stuff, everything that's surrounding Sean Strickland right now, but with main focus on that press conference, that pre-fight press conference and the interaction with the journalist. I almost did air quotes, but I hate air quotes. The journalist and like everything that's surrounding it, right? And usually, if you follow my podcast, I appreciate you. If not, hit the subscribe button right now. Usually, my podcasts are like very well researched. Not that this is not, but like I prepared them for a longer period of time than just this one now. So I'm just more or less now winging it in regards to just not having the thoughtful structure that you might be used to if you're like a podcast subscriber. If not, subscribe now either on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, Apple, and so on. And you will see a few more structured episodes. But so I try to follow a rather similar structure off the cuff. Usually what I do is I review the situation that I explain briefly, and then I throw some media theories at it and explain how those media theories or communication theories impact the case that we discussed. In this case right now, the case is UFC 297, Sean Strickland. Okay, so first the off-the-cuff comments, and then like I add some notes in regards to, well, which theories to apply here. So what happened, right? So we had the pre-fight press conference with Sean Strickland, and then that journalist gets into it, and he asks him about like his LGBTQIA plus whatnot remarks that he had before. And a few thoughts on that, okay? As someone who's teaching future journalists, all right? So the thing is, a journalist at a press conference, quite likely, and I know it's MMA, so benefit of doubt, maybe not, but quite likely people working for big outlets, or just people that get accredited as journalists, more or less should have an education in media/communications, right? So they should know at least basics of media theories, communication theories, meaning how to conduct interviews, how to interact with people, intercultural, cross-cultural communication. They know how to read body language. They should. They know how to conduct interviews, right? So we teach them like, they at least study 4 years, maybe even more if they go for masters and whatnot, right? So they know how to interact/talk to people. And it's not to manipulate them, but to make sure that they really get to the gist of things, right? Now then, seeing a journalist who's a professional in this case, right? So the press conference is not a professional fight. So in a press conference setting, the professionals are the journalists asking the questions. The fighters are not professional communicators. They're not professional media people. So they're out of the element. The journalists are the ones who are the professionals. And so now the journalist trying to bait Sean Strickland into saying something clickbait-worthy, whatnot, is ridiculous. Okay? That already goes against ethics. So I know apparently this journalist, right, is high on like being an ally, supporting communities and so on, which is great for him. But he's not that high on basic journalism ethics, okay, which is a big problem for me already. Because as a journalist, you're not supposed to bait the interview subject into doing something that's controversial, not beneficial, whatever you might call it, okay? So that's already not great. Again, the journalist is the professional here, right? It's like if you turn it around, it's like you're going into the cage with Sean Strickland, where Sean Strickland is the professional, and then he lights you up. You're like, dude, what the hell? Like, can you not hold back? Can you not be nice to me in my first sparring session? Like what he did with Nina, right? In the first sparring session, he was kind of nice to her. The journalist, they're trying to use his what he thought superior way of phrasing questions to get Sean Strickland to say something stupid, something clickbait worthy, something that he can cancel him for, right? Already incredibly annoying from the journalist point of view. Okay. Second thought on this. Even if he would have said something that's offensive, and according to the journalist, he said it like a while back or like some time ago, aren't we supposed to be able to change our opinions, our minds on things? I mean, of course, flip-flopping is one thing, but changing your mind, having a different stance, getting more information, processing that information, and then changing your opinion shouldn't be a problem, right? So just to get this out of the way. Okay. What else? I had so many thoughts in my head when I started this video. Then, of course, people coming to the aid of this journalist, right? First, then the journalist tried to cancel Sean Strickland that's when I decided I had to talk about it, because then it wasn't done at the press conference. Then I don't know if it's the same journalist or some journalist goes on Twitter, X, be like, he should be banned from UFC 2097. Like, what? If there's one person that should be banned, it's that journalist for being a bad journalist. Okay, for going against journalistic ethics. So that's the one person should be banned. Okay. Then coming to the aid of that journalist, right? Of course, like, oh God, the woke mainstream media. I hate saying those things because I mean, I work in/for/with the media. But the usual suspects would come to the aid of the journalist right now, right? So you take the people with like the biggest MMA podcast in the world, for example, of course, coming to the aid of that guy. I just listened to the beginning of one of the biggest MMA podcasts, Back in Your Life, this morning in the gym. And one of the guys, so not the main guy, one of the guys who's actually getting worse and worse every time I hear him, to be honest, and who's just getting some traction like on other MMA programs too, unfortunately. He said something like there was a fan rushing the stage to try to shake Strickland's hand, right? And then they said, yeah, but it's not Strickland's fault, which is not. And he's like, no, it's not his fault, but he cultivated that behavior, and so that's why it's his fault. Like, what? Sean Strickland cultivated behavior that rushing the stage is okay. Dude, you're watching MMA, you're watching cage fighting, okay? This is not chess. And while I criticize Dana White a lot, at least in my head, I have to applaud him for like taking the stance here and being like, dude, like, because the same journalist asked him like question about like giving Sean Strickland like a long leash or giving fighters a long leash, and then Dana White was like, leash? I don't give anyone a leash. They say what they want. Like, I don't tell anyone what to think, what to say. Freedom of speech. Ever heard of it? Right? That was cool. Usually I'm not a big Dana White fan, but in this case, that was well said and put that journalist into his place, because he clearly thinks he's more important than he is. Okay. Whew. And you see, I'm struggling a bit, because it makes me mad when professionals in their profession take advantage of people that come into their realm to be nice, help them, give them their time, and then they try to use that to their advantage, right? So let's dive into like a few theories, media theories that are at play here. Okay, so one of the theories that's very common when it comes to media and communication is the framing theory, meaning you frame someone in a certain light, okay? So in this case, of course, from that reporter's, journalist's point of view, Sean Strickland is like that redneck guy that says like LGBTQ, AI plus, hateful stuff, rhetoric, spoof, like hateful rhetoric out there. And so he's framing Sean Strickland in that light. Like then later on Twitter, I don't know if it's the same guy or a different guy, posted things like Sean Strickland, anti-gay agenda messages and stuff like this. That's like, he didn't say anything in that regard. He said, actually, word for word, he said, like, you can F whoever you want. I don't care. Just don't teach that stuff to my children. That's what he said. So there was no anti-gay agenda or anything like it from Sean Strickland, right? So that's framing theory. Okay, you try to frame someone, a case in a certain light. All right, so it's framing. That's what the media does. It doesn't mean that they're necessarily just completely lying. In this case, it's very close to lying, though, because it didn't say anything anti-gay. But they're trying to put someone in a certain frame so that if you, the consumer, the audience from the outside looking at the report, you're like, oh, wow, Sean Strickland is an anti-gay guy, right? Yeah, I hate him. Yeah, so that's the framing theory. Okay. Then another theory that comes into play here is the spiral of silence theory. I talk about this a lot because it just happens a lot. So spiral of silence theory just means that the thoughts of the minority get drowned out by the majority. For example, if the biggest MMA podcast / show in the world, Back in Your Life, is just a very woke one, for example, and it's like anti-Sean Strickland in this case, then the majority of the listeners, for example, will agree with that, and hence it slowly drowns out the minority. So in this case, the drowning out probably is going to take longer because the minority might not even be the minority and it's very vocal. But it just means like you listen to it and you're like, oh yeah, sure, I guess he's right. Yeah, I guess they're right. Yeah, okay, I heard it a few times now. Yeah, maybe it's right. And even if you disagree, you're not voicing it. So you're still disagreeing. You're like, yeah, no, I don't think he's right, but yeah, okay, I disagree. But I don't say it because everybody else who listens to it agrees with it. Okay, so you're the minority and you're not voicing your opinion anymore. That's the spiral of silence. And if you don't voice your opinion, eventually that opinion gets drowned out. Okay. Another theory, of course, that's at play is the echo chamber, right? Echo chamber, filter bubble, not exactly the same, but used like very similarly. It's a difficult word for a non-native speaker. Used in the same context, meaning like you consume things that you agree with, right? So in this case, then, that journalist, for example, of course, is in a bubble that completely agrees with him. So then people who agree with him are retweeting him, reposting him, supporting him, and only see things that affirm their stand. So if I already think that Sean Strickland is a piece of, then this will pop up in my feed, like Sean Strickland anti-gay and things like this, even though it's not true, right? So that's like the typical echo chamber that just amplifies your existing thoughts already because you're just seeing things, you're interacting with things that agree with your thoughts, and so you're not getting out of it. Yeah, so polarization works very, very well in an echo chamber. If the echo chamber is big, like a woke echo chamber, for example, then that reaches lots of people. Okay. Another theory that we discussed in, I think, the first year already is my first year of studies is the cultivation theory. Cultivation theory just means like the more you're exposed to something, the more you're exposed to a certain kind of media portrayal, the more likely you are to accept it. So if there are lots of those journalists, for example, showcasing Sean Strickland in a certain light, you're like, okay, eventually you're going to believe it. You're like, okay, they're cultivating you to follow their beliefs. Okay, and that's what, again, this journalist also tried. He thought like, okay, if I paint Sean Strickland in that light, and lots of people see it, they will follow that and they will believe it. And he might have thought that his echo chamber is bigger than he thought. Or maybe he just lived in his echo chamber and he wasn't aware that there are other dissenting voices out there that actually support Sean Strickland. Okay. And this now just leads me one more time, and then I ought to wrap it up already with the lectures, because if you want to learn more about it, enroll in my classes. Leads me to what I said in the beginning, the ethical considerations, right? Because all the theories that I just mentioned, right, and apologies for making it sound like a lecture, but all those 5-6 theories I just mentioned are things that journalists learn in their studies, and they hone their skills. They know how the theories work. They know how to utilize them. Okay, they know how to frame stories. They have subjects like new media studies. They know how to use different platforms to their full strength, and they know how to word tweets. They learn how to craft tweets. They learn how the difference between like a tweet and like an essay, like a report in a newspaper. Like they learn all those intricate differences. Okay, that's what they study for 4+ years. So they should be very good at that. Yeah, they learn which words to use. They learn how to use their voice, for example. The journalist, for example, sounded a bit condescending. So and it was probably on purpose. Okay, so they learn all those things. And using those skills, like with great, stupid quote, but with great power comes great responsibility. Like I said, it's like Sean Strickland lighting you up in sparring. You wouldn't be okay with that. You're like, dude, you're a world champion, former world champion, should still be world champion, and you're lighting up like a newbie. And that's exactly what journalists, sometimes in this case, this guy try to do with Sean Strickland. Okay, not last thing, but almost last thing was like this. One of the biggest MMA podcasts in the world, Back in Your Life, always has like, you got the receipts. Yeah, cool. Appreciate it. It's fun to listen to. However, who out there who doesn't run a big podcast / media company can keep track of all the receipts? Can you keep track? Do you remember what you tweeted 7 years ago? Probably not. Does it make it okay to say something racist 7 years ago? No, it does not. Is there a potential that you said something stupid 7 years ago and now you don't mean it anymore? Yes, there is. Okay. So this narrative of like, you said something terrible a few years ago and now you're still a terrible person. While I understand it, it's easy to use like a broad stroke is the English saying, right? A broad stroke, not a brushed stroke, a broad stroke to like say like, okay, you're terrible person because you said one or a few bad things or stupid things, whatever back then. I understand, but people change, okay? That's just how it is. And again, as a journalist, you should also be able to read between the lines. Just because Sean Strickland uses the F word all the time doesn't mean that he's a terrible person. Okay. Whew. Okay, so I'm really curious what everybody else is thinking. Do I exaggerate right now, being mad at that journalists that now also come to the aid of the journalist and that like support that kind of reporting or whatever it might be? Don't even want to call it reporting, to be honest. Yeah, we're curious to hear, like, so shout out in the comments, or if you want, also via email, funkypod@gmail.com if you feel it's a better way to debate things, no problem. Yeah, I'm puzzled by like how the media sometimes behaves, and I think that's also the reason, because I mean, fighters, while they're not professionals in media communication, they're not stupid. Sean Strickland is in particular. He always says he didn't finish school or didn't study or whatever. I don't think he's stupid. I think he's quite smart, actually. Reminds me a bit of one of my Muay Thai coaches, to be honest. He also said he finished school after high school and didn't study or anything. She's pretty smart, like street smart, of course, street-wise. Learned a lot, like, while fighting. And there's a reason why Sean Strickland isn't back in your life, for example. There's a reason why lots of fighters are doing less and less of those journalist interviews, and why there's more and more content by Nina, for example, the Schmo, Helen, and so on, or like even fighter podcasts, right? There's a reason for that, because the fighters know that those content creators / previous fighters, they're not going to BS them. They're not going to try to bait them, coax them into saying something stupid just for headlines. They know that they can just be real with them. And I think that's why Sean Strickland likes to do like the BS, like firework fights with Nina, or like he used to hang with the Schmo and things like this. Okay, so they know what's happening. And if this continues, I foresee a decline when it comes to MMA journalism. Not for the biggest podcast in the world right now, the biggest MMA podcast, because it's going to be back in your life for a while. Too big to fail, probably, in right away. But for other MMA journalists, I think it's going to get tougher because content creators who take a different approach to it and who aren't as, I don't want to say a bad word, who don't have like a hidden agenda when they ask you questions, are probably more easy, more fun to work with. And that's why I'm looking forward to seeing more content. And even though I'm not the biggest fan necessarily, but of things like Nina and so on, just because I think it's sometimes a bit like too silly, or maybe I'm just jealous, but her content with Sean is amazing. Even she made even Drickers look funny and be likable. So good job on that. I love Helen and the Schmo, obviously. So I'm looking forward to seeing more content like this, more fighters having podcasts. Like Rampage Jackson is like just the best / worst podcast at the same time. It's great because they have all the cool fighters on. But he just doesn't know anything about like current fighters / fights. Which is hilarious. Jamal Hill is doing a great job, but like the production value is ridiculous. There are so many. Mighty Mouse, great ideas, great mind. Needs a bit more media training, but he's gonna get there. So there are so many great ways to get yourself out there. You don't need a journalist anymore. So for every fighter listening, two takeaways here. A, if you want to hone your media and communication skills, work with me. Secondly, you don't need those journalists. Yeah, there are so many outlets out there now, so many avenues that you could go to. You don't need to be back in your life to make people like you, to make people hear you. You can also just shoot fireworks in a desert and people still gonna love you. Okay, having it said, I'm going to wrap it up here now. Let me know what you think about all the drama or everything that's going on. If you're new to the channel, like, share, subscribe would be really cool to discuss more things with you. It's not only MMA content, by the way. It's like current happenings, current developments in the world. I just dropped a politics episode like yesterday, actually. And analyzing that from a media / communications point of view. So if you're into media / communication, if you want to know how this whole thing works, why things work in the media with communication and so on, like, share, subscribe, follow for more mindful media and communication tips, tricks, and breakdowns. Until then, stay safe, take care, keep your guard up. Sawadee Krap.